Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Eastern Shore Undercover Podcast. I'm your host, Earl Campbell, and today I am joined by our Wicomico County Executive, Miss Julie Giordano. I reached out to Miss Giordano this morning and asked her to jump on a quick interview so we can discuss the recent legislation that was put into place at the most recent county council meeting on what I believe was February 4th, which basically says that all dog kennels must be within 1,000 feet of the nearest home within 3 years. So when that happened, of course, people panicked and essentially say it's going to shut down some other businesses here in Wicomico County. So I just wanted to jump on and talk to you about that. First off, thank you for joining us, Madam County Executive.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. I'm sure you're a busy lady. I want to talk about the last county council meeting and mainly these dog kennels. We had a lot of people reach out and message us and comment many questions. So I was hoping you could explain it a little bit better than we could.
Sure.
So I going back just a little bit, the misconceptions, I guess I'd say, of this council meeting was that you knew what was going on and in a roundabout way, you just didn't say anything.
Right.
What was the outcome? Like, what was the synopsis, if you can, of this council meeting and what happened?
Yeah, sure. So with the council meeting, the way that this went down, so the council had been working on legislation for quite a bit. There was, I don't even want to say one bad actor, but there was one person in particular that multiple complaints had come in on. And the complainants actually live in Delaware because it's on like the very western part of our county. However, constituents are constituents. A lot of people were really concerned, which kind of, sparked the county council to start rethinking what legislation should go into effect when it comes to commercial kennels.
Right.
And I think in their mind, their end goal was to really target this person and sort of put this one person out of business, which never really works the way that we want it to. Right. So we had been working with the council. They were correct in that. We had worked for, quite a few weeks. I leave a lot of that up to my director of planning and zoning and her department because they're the experts in this. And so they have been going back and forth. We had lawyers involved. It went through the planning commission, and the recommendation that came out from the planning commission was, why don't we go ahead and make this a 200-foot setback? So if you have a property, if you have a kennel, there at least needs to be 200 feet between you and the next neighbor. Right. So we were okay with that. And everything was great leading up to the council meeting. So we go into the council meeting. They had talked a little bit about some sunset clauses and things like that. And I'm going to be honest with you, my planning director's report that was sent to the council the morning of basically said that they do not support the sunset clause. And it's going to hurt the existing kennels. So they got information before this council meeting, and this wasn't even a daytime council meeting. It was a nighttime council meeting at 6 p.m. So they had plenty of time to digest exactly what she was saying. But the recommendation was 200 feet. We go into the council meeting. We have our attorney. We have Clark Meadows, who works in our planning and zoning department. Tracy, our new director of planning and zoning, Tracy Taylor, she was in the audience. And everything goes through. Everything's great. And then all of a sudden, once the legislation passed, all of a sudden the council's like, well, maybe we need to make amendments and we need to make changes to this. And one of the changes that they made was changing that 200-foot setback to 1,000 feet.
Which is a big jump.
Right. Yeah. And if you watch the council meeting, you start wondering, where in the world did this 1,000 feet come from? And it literally was a recommendation by someone in the audience. And then Councilman Shane Baker chimes in and says, yeah, 1,000 feet. And then that's what they ended up passing. And they never called my director of planning and zoning back up to the table, never asked her like what this would do. And all of a sudden, this is law. And we're really trying to figure out exactly what that meant, right? So that was a nighttime meeting. The next day, we meet with planning and zoning. We're trying to figure out exactly what this is going to do. And we wanted to have all of our ducks in a row. And so that's where we are. You know what I mean? Is that we did an analysis. The county attorney actually went to the council on Friday and said, are you sure this is what you want to do? And they said, yes, this is what we want to do. And then on Tuesday, before I put anything out, I met with the council administrator, called her over to my office, and I said, "Are you sure this is what the council wants to do?" And she said, "Yes, that's what they voted to do." And I said, "You do understand this is going to put every kennel in Wicomico County out of business. They can't comply to this 1,000 feet."
Right.
And she said, kind of like put her hands up, like, "This is what they voted for." And I said, "I want to let you know, I am going to be writing to every single kennel owner and putting a press release out and doing a Facebook post, letting people know this has happened."
Mhm.
And that's kind of where we are now. So there's a lot of reaction to how I handled it. However, I
Yeah.
felt pretty good about what I did, because without me doing what I did, these people would have never known.
Mhm.
So
I know there's been some interviews that are done by Mr. Cannon, and there's been some things that have been said, and I've heard people saying that you and your team were okay with the legislation until you found out that it was going to impact, Delmarva Canine and JC Richardson. And before anyone gets on here and says, she's friends with JC, that's why everyone loves JC Richardson. Everyone knows JC Richardson, and he comes from a wonderful family here right on the shore, and he's known by everybody. So I just wanted to nip that in the butt before it gets, out of control. People get up here and say, well, that's given special treatment. Can you respond to the people that are saying, this is why it was changed, and this is because it affects JC Richardson?
sure, yeah. JC just happens to be, one of the 20 kennels that will be affected by this. So the thing is that when people say that, well, she's only doing that because of JC, how would they feel if I turned the tables on them and said the only reason you're doing this is because it's to target JC because he supports me? I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, this is an anti-business bill. It's anti-business. And that seems
Yes.
to be the theme of a lot of what the council does. When they did the stuff with Safari at the quarry, it's anti-business. When they refuse to even help, like, opening up the free market when it comes to our liquor situation, it's
Mhm.
anti-business. And now we have this. And it's anti-business. And part of my job as the executive is to protect our small businesses. You
Mhm.
probably know this better than anybody. It's hard to have a business in Maryland.
Yes.
There's a lot
Very.
of laws, a lot of taxes, a lot of things that are put into place. So why are we making it even harder? And at the end of the day, is it ironic that JC has a kennel? Yes, it is. And was he a supporter of mine? Yes. But I hate to tell you this. I stood up, not just for Delmarva Canine. I stood up for Southpaw. They weren't contributors of mine. I stood up for the doghouse. They're right on Snow Hill Road.
No
They're
road.
not contributors of mine. I
Mhm.
stood up for the Humane Society. We were still really unclear about that situation.
Yeah.
Not
What is
one
that? A lot of people have asked about that. Is it going to affect the Humane Society?
Yeah, from the way that our attorneys described it, no, because they're not a commercial entity and they're actually not technically defined as a commercial kennel because it's a nonprofit. So we think that they'll be okay. We think anyway. Right now, it appears that way. But JC just was one of 20. So again, and this just goes to show when you try to do targeted legislation, you end up hurting more than helping, and that's
Yes.
exactly what happened here.
Yes. And unfortunately, there's businesses in the county that have been around for 20, 30 years now, and they potentially are going to have to close their doors because of this legislation. It's obvious the council didn't take that into consideration when passing this law. What, if anything, and I don't know if there's anything that you can do, but that county executive's office can do to help save these businesses, and what's the next step?
Yeah, so just like any legislative bill that comes forward, I have the opportunity to veto the bill. The
Mhm.
county council really wanted me quickly to sign this bill, and I wasn't going to sign it. I have 21 days to sign it and then decide whether I'm going to, accept it or I'm going to veto it. And in this case,
Okay.
I have the opportunity to veto. Now,
Okay.
I have vetoed stuff before, and typically they override it. Usually with a
Right.
5-2, maybe a 6-1. But I really am hoping that they will set the personality and the politics aside, because this isn't about right or wrong or my side or their side. This is literally about businesses here in Wicomico County. So, and again, this is our democracy system working. That's why we have checks and balances. There are going to be times where they pass legislation that they might not have thought everything through. And so that
Right.
check or balance is for it to come over to my side and say, okay, well, hey, executive, what do you think? Should we pass it or should we veto it? And then I send it back over for reconsideration. So that's just part of our system. And that's just something that's going to happen this time. But I am going to tell them that they need to hear from these kennel owners. They need to hear from them. And so I will not veto the bill until after the 18th. And I have plenty of time. I think I have through like the 26th or something like that to veto the bill. So my plan is for the council meeting to happen on the 10th. I do know a lot of kennels have reached out. They are coming in full force with their attorneys, and rightfully so. They should. And then once that happens, the next day, the 19th or the 20th, I will go ahead and send the bill back over with a veto. And then it's going to be, the council will then have to put it on their next agenda. And actually with the veto, I give an explanation as to why I'm vetoing it. I'm going to publicize why I'm vetoing it. And then on the next meeting, they will have to vote. And we'll just have to see if they override the veto. I think they would be really foolish to do so. And again, this isn't a win for me. I don't even have a kennel. I don't have that small business. This is a win for the people. And this is why we need to prove that the system works. This is why that system is in place. Something happened. It was a very knee-jerk reaction. They've admitted that it probably wasn't the best thing. So let's go ahead and fix it. And then in a year, we can come back and then maybe put that 200-foot setback. And this is why it's important to really look at the recommendations from the professionals and the people who know what they're doing in planning and zoning, rather than just coming up with your own or what your buddy, screams, in the audience.
Right. I saw Council President John Cannon did an interview with our friends over at WBOC. And in that interview, he said that basically they didn't really think too much about the 1,000-foot rule, and said that he may reconsider that number down the road. I think he said they have a year to reconsider it. But for business owners, that undue stress of not knowing and the uncertainty of the future has got to weigh heavy on them in general and create a lot of unnecessary stress. What are your thoughts on, hopefully changing the measurement rule? Me personally, and this is just me, I think it's just a way to kick the can down the road. And I'll be blunt and to the point. I just don't trust the council at this point to change that and take that stress off these business owners.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that they have an opportunity to do the right thing, and for them to say, this isn't about us being wrong, the executive being right, or whatever else. This is, we are recognizing that this probably wasn't the best thing, and there needed to be a little bit more research done. And so therefore, we're going to go ahead and veto, or we're not going to override the veto. Let the veto happen. The bill will then die, and then they can revisit this in a year. Our planning and zoning code doesn't allow for another application or an amendment to happen until a year. So they will have a year to really think things through, and even talk to the kennel owners about the 200-foot setback, to make sure that that's not a burden to anybody, so we want to make sure that we have all of our I's dotted and T's crossed. I never think it's a really good idea to create legislation based on one side. And I think that that's what happened here. They heard some complaints and, just created legislation based on that rather than hearing both sides of the situation. And the problem is, too, we literally have gotten complaints on one kennel in this whole county. Right. The rest of the kennels, not one complaint. And as a matter of fact, I've had neighbors reach out saying, we're going to write letters because we support them. So I think that the council has gotten inundated with calls and concerns and emails, and they should. I mean, this is, what happens. So absolutely. But John Cannon's interview, that's a whole topic on itself. So.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about next.
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts on, him talking about your press release and saying the Facebook being, post being immature. And before you answer that, if I can just say, we hear this time and time again from Councilman Jeff Merritt and from, John Cannon and some other elder leaders in the community. And I think it just comes from a time that, these guys haven't advanced into the new technology and are stuck in the 1980s way of communicating. We just saw our president, Donald Trump, use social media and podcasts in a phenomenal way. And it helped him with, basically win his election. And he said that, people like Joe Rogan and the Tucker Carlsons and the people that are out here with the podcasts and the social media, they're the ones that are the new generation of news and information. But anyway, I digress. How did you feel hearing him say all that?
I was so frustrated. Well, first off, and I never really do this, I actually want to commend WBOC because they actually got the crux of the story. I was actually disappointed with WMDT, which is not usual for me. I usually
Mm.
very much am the opposite way, but WMDT, all they did was focus on the divisiveness of this. And that's not what this was at all. As I said before, this whole thing is the core of checks and balances of democracy. In this case, the council passed bad legislation, shooting from the hip, and I brought attention to that, and I'm going to veto the bill. But jumping to his comment, I'm glad I did what I did. And I don't think that I even saw, I know we probably talk about open agenda later because that's a whole nother topic on itself, but talking about meltdowns and it was immature for me to say what I said and whatever else. I got so many compliments and calls and saying, thank you. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Thank you for showing us on your Facebook Live, like exactly what we're talking about here. Because these people had no idea. When I got the calls in, they said, I saw this on social media. I saw this on social media. And so I'm sorry that they don't utilize social media maybe the way that they should, but that is how people get their information now.
Yes,
And whether
absolutely.
it's news or not, I mean, that's just the way it is. And so I wanted to get it out as quickly as possible. And within one day, that Facebook Live got almost 6,000 views. And
Yes.
that's what was so important, is for people to see like what exactly went down. So I don't think it was immature. I don't think it was divisive. I think it was being realistic as to, hey, look, I need you to understand this is what just happened. And a lot of people, I told them, please don't be upset with us. Had I had known this amendment was going to happen, I would have told you to come to the meeting before. But it was just out of the blue that they added in 1,000 feet. We thought the 200 foot was going through, and that was it. So,
Yeah.
But I don't believe that it was immature. I think that he's just upset because, they don't get criticized too much by the public when it comes to, inside council meetings and things like that. And I think that he's about to get a big dose of that. And I don't think that they particularly like it. So,
Yeah. And I'm gonna pat myself on the back here for a minute, and I don't usually do that. But in the past, in the years past, prior to Eastern Shore Undercover, there was never any social media pages out here that put this kind of stuff out there and kept the community informed. So it's not as easy just to pass things under the bus and be ignored with stuff.
yeah.
So he also said that one thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way was he said people don't need to storm the council chambers and cause drama, which I find totally ironic, knowing he allows the same group of individuals to march into those council chambers every single council meeting and cause drama and cause headaches and create, issues right in this community. Probably more than any other area.
Yeah. So there were a couple things that he did. So the first thing that irritated me was, or maybe the second thing, I guess, was that he also talked about like my team, like not being available or they were standing right in there and they didn't say anything. And
yes.
I need him to understand in the council, my team is not just going to walk up to the table and just plop themselves down like, hold on, you're wrong. And this is the reason why. Like he would decimate them at the table. Like they're not going to put themselves in that situation. So my suggestion to them is if you're going to make amendments, please call the director of planning and zoning up just to run some things by her or whoever, whatever entity, whatever, department might be, on, in conversation or the topic, like call them up. They're right there. Like talk to them. And they didn't do that. But yes, going on to the don't store, I almost laughed because I was like, you don't want anybody storming in and causing drama. Like, why didn't you have that mindset for Safari at the Quarry? You had no problem with these people coming in, taking over the council, several council meetings, talking bad about me, and they just thrived on it. And in all honesty, it's created kind of a nightmare with one particular member because he's just out of control at this point in time. But like, where was that? So now because you're going to be criticized for a bad decision, all of a sudden, no, you don't need to come in and cause drama. We understand what we did was wrong. Excuse me, sir. No, you are not getting off the hook that easy. These people are going to come in and tell you exactly, how they feel about this situation. And you know what? You're going to sit there and you're going to take it because it's your meeting and you got to sit up. Like, it is what it is. So I found that comical. I almost laughed. I'm like, oh, so we, if it's something against you, we don't want people coming in and starting drama. However, we've had to listen to Safari at the Quarry people for like 8 months. Okay.
Yes.
So,
and it's such a two-way street with them. I brought this up in the last podcast, but they will allow people to get up there and talk negatively about you, and me, and various different people. But if it's towards the council it can't be happening. And you're like me, and I'm sure you were on the other end of the letter. You saw the legal letter that I got.
Yeah.
It's totally crazy. One thing that also caught me off guard was the claim that all you had to do was talk to the council and this
Right.
would have been resolved. It seems that when things are good, they want to take credit for it. And if there's a slightest bit of controversy that takes place in the community, well, they push that off on and have a witch hunt for our county executive.
Right. So this was my thought on that. All they had to do was let us know. Well, dear John, we did. Like you got first of all, you got the packet from Tracy Taylor, who was our director of planning and zoning, her planning director's report that said she didn't agree with the sunset at all. So there's that, like that this would eventually, affect every single person. And then you had Andrew Illuminati, who's our county attorney, talk to them the Friday after they did it. And they still stood by, oh no, this is what we want. And then I met with the council administrator before I sent anything out to verify this is what you want to do. So I don't know what else we could have done. It's not like, the council president is so apt to coming in and like meeting with me. So now that all of a sudden they've gotten, this plethora of phone calls and emails and whatever else, all of a sudden now they're asking the questions that they probably should have asked prior to making that decision. So I don't want to hear all they had to do was come work with us because we tried and you said, we don't care. This is what we're doing.
Yep. And when you say sunset, that's this 3-year limit or the
3 years. Yeah. So meaning that this will go into effect. So each kennel right now has 3 years to comply with this new law that's going to go into place with 1,000 feet. But I don't even know how they thought that was a good idea, considering what are people supposed to just invent land? What are they supposed to do? Like invent footage, buy new property? Like it just doesn't even make sense. So,
and there's just not much land around here. Even, the whole county.
No.
That's available for even a kennel owner to purchase.
No, there was 4 parcels, and that doesn't even mean that they would be, there's 4 parcels that do not, within 1,000 feet, don't have another, a housing unit or whatever near them. And 1, they're not even for sale. And 2, there's like marshland and all kinds of stuff. There's just no way to adhere to it.
Yeah. So I would be neglecting the community if I didn't bring up this open agenda. I saw last night's post. First off, let me say that I knew they had the YouTube channel, or not the YouTube channel, the Pack 14 channel. I did not know that they had a Facebook page until last night. And
I think they turned, not to interrupt you, but I think they turned the vote against question A to the open agenda. I think they just renamed it. Yeah.
Yeah. They should just be named it "We Hate Julie" page and be done with it, and they could just carry it all over. That's basically what it is.
Right.
But anyway, without throwing too many, they claimed you had a meltdown on your Facebook page and then rambled on about more campaign contributor nonsense. First of all, did you see the post? And what are your thoughts on these guys just making these constant complaints about, you in particular and your campaign contributors? My personal opinion, I think they're trying to nip it off now so that they eliminate your campaign contributors in the future. But I could be wrong. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so first of all, this page I looked, they have 500 followers, I think. 200 of them, I'm pretty sure, are their own fake accounts and personal accounts. So they have 300 people, and I know some of my people follow that page to see it. So there's probably maybe, I don't know, 125 people that maybe follow exactly what they're doing and really believe in their cause or whatever.
And I think it's probably a high number.
That might be high. Well, I'm giving them a little bit of credit here.
Yes.
So, this is what is funny about these guys. First of all, have you seen, well, I don't watch any of their shows because I refuse to give them views, but now all of a sudden they have a serious background and they were in suits and real serious, it was real, it was real serious thing. But what was funny is that, look, I live rent free in these guys' heads. I live rent free. It's comical. And I have told them every time they say something negative about me, I think I gain more followers, honestly. I gain more supporters and followers because they are it's like Donald Trump. The more the media and the left, attack him, the more popular he got. And that's kind of where we are right now. And with these guys, look, the council needs cheerleaders too. And if they have these guys, and that's fine. Like if they're going to be the council cheerleaders, that's fine. And they're going to pick apart everything I do. My problem with Open Agenda is that they don't tell the truth. If
No,
they
they don't.
would, if they would have said, look, this is what happened. It probably wasn't the best legislation. She could have handled it a little bit differently. Maybe, there needs to be, a meeting here, like just some sort of like solution. No, it's she was fine with this the whole time. And then all of a sudden now she's not because it's JC Richardson. Like you're making things up. You're making up narratives that just don't make sense. And this whole campaign contribution thing is crazy to me. Like this
Exactly.
is how political candidates make their way, like as a political candidate. They have people who believe in them, they support them, they give them money, and that's just the way it is. I mean, I'm sorry that no one on our council, except for maybe James Wynn, like has campaign contributions given to them. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. Well, actually, I'm wrong. Joe Holloway had Mr. Benson, so there was that
Yes.
one. But
Yeah.
but other than that, it's just funny though, because like I said, I just wish that they would just like tell the truth. Tell the
Yep.
truth, like the whole truth about like what happened. And because you claim you want to do the news. Well, no, you don't. You want to spin the news to make it look like I'm doing something wrong. Well, like I
Mhm.
said, your 500 followers, well, maybe 75 followers for real. That's fine. They're never going to vote for me anyway, and that's okay.
Mhm.
But everybody else, the other 103,000 people, see the good work that we're doing because they see it on the news. They see it on your page. They see it on
Yeah.
my page. And they see the community changing,
Mhm.
so they see the good things that are going on. And in this case, the county executive supported small businesses and protected small businesses and stood up for them as their voice and was
Absolutely.
praised and thanked for doing so. And it wouldn't matter. Take kennels out of it. It could be printing presses. And dear Jeff, I would protect your printing press too. Like, I would do that because I support small businesses. My administration
Absolutely.
supports small businesses. And so it just so happened to be kennels.
Mhm.
Why are you telling me I'm only supporting it because of JC? Y'all are the ones who brought up kennels to begin with. Like you're the ones that drafted the legislation saying that they were such a problem. So are you
Mhm.
targeting JC? It's like I said, I could flip the table on them. But
Yeah.
Open Agenda, those guys, I mean, if they want to spend their time making videos that get, 100 views or whatever they get, that's fine. I mean, go ahead and do it. It's fine. I'm not going to be a view, but half the people that watch it are my people. Like, did you see this? It's ridiculous. I'm like, I am not watching that. So
Yeah, I'm the same way. I did watch part of the last one just because a few people had sent it over and said they'd mentioned me. But we have a couple different programs that will get a little alert if we're mentioned in a Facebook post, and we've kind of gotten away with it a lot because it happens a lot more often now, and it's a constant job. But one more thing, I know you're a very
yeah.
busy lady, and I don't want to keep you very long. There's a lot of rumor going around over this whole council Shane Baker versus Keith Newton issue that was discussed at the county council meeting. Me personally, it was like a circus to me. A lot of allegations were made. And somehow you got blamed for these peace orders. And I know that, I've reached out to you last week and before I did the podcast, and I said, can you give us a formal statement? And you did. But you have these people, the Goldbergs of the world, the Venosas of the world, claiming that you pushed for this peace order. And even went as far as saying that, people that are going to be involved with you, they should start saving their money for an attorney. To those who say that, what do you want to say and back to them?
I think, it's kind of crazy. I think that they think I'm way more powerful than I really am. So they're really giving me a lot of credit. First and foremost, I had nothing to do with the Keith Newton, Shane Baker peace order. That was a situation between Deputy Newton and former Deputy Baker that had nothing to do with me. It had nothing to do with me, my family, my job, nothing. It was conversations held by the two of them to where Deputy Newton felt threatened in a certain way and felt that he was unsafe. His wife was unsafe by the text message that were sent by Councilman Baker. So
Right.
that is between those two. And as a matter of fact, I hadn't even spoken to Keith Newton about any of this. I didn't go to the hearing. I didn't go to any of it. And I'm glad I didn't, with you saying, that you were there and it was kind of like a circus. But I had nothing to do with that. I get blamed I've gotten blamed for everything. I mean, they are, I saw them like, oh, I'm connecting the dots and doing this thing.
Right.
And like, I'm like,
Yeah.
there's no dots to be connected. I mean, it's just not true. It's not true. And if it makes it easier for them, whether it's Goldberg, Venosa, Shane Baker, anybody on the council, if it makes it easier for them to go about their lives and blame me for everything, then so be it. I mean, it is what it is, but it's getting ridiculous at this point. Councilman Baker had the peace order put against him because of the actions done by Councilman Baker. And
Right.
it wasn't continued after a week because there just wasn't enough to continue it. He keeps going around saying he was exonerated and he's innocent and all this crazy. It doesn't mean you were innocent. It just means that there wasn't enough to continue it after a week. That's it. And I'll be interested. I know you sat down with Keith at some point. I'd be interested to see what Keith has to say. So whenever that, gets posted or whatever. But I just, to sit there and say that they're blaming me for this, that, and the other. And I don't know if you saw Goldberg's last council comment. It was just insane. Like naming all these things that I apparently was involved in. And I'm like, look, I mean, I don't know how much extra time you think I have, but, some of this stuff was happening. My husband, as you know, suffered a massive heart attack on December 10th, flatlined for 10, had no pulse for 10 minutes. Like I am dealing still with that. Like I don't have time to worry about anything going on with Keith Newton. I don't have time to worry about what's going on with Shane Baker and his, demise. Like I don't have time for that. I just don't. And so, it is what it is. I think that was also, they're like, you weren't sitting in the council meeting and why aren't you here? And why aren't you doing that? And I'm like, well, I'm not, first of all, we sit in my conference room and my department heads sit in here with me and we watch the council meeting and they sort of wait. They'll have like a snack or a drink or whatever, and they're waiting their turn to go in front of, I call them the lords, but, to go in front of them to, do whatever they need to do. So I'm going to keep doing that. This is a place of refuge. It's a place for them to kind of chill out and not be involved in all of that. Plus, the council meeting is freezing. It's like air conditioning on in there, and it's January or February now. So it's freezing in there. But anyway, they can, like I said, if it makes them feel better about the poor decisions that they're making, and the bad people that they are, and they want to blame me, so be it. I don't care. So
they're affecting a lot of people by these decisions that they make, and I hope there some common sense comes here. What's the 18th is the next council meeting?
Yeah, and I do have to say, they were pretty easy on me the month of January, and maybe it's because they felt bad that my husband died for 10 minutes and then came back to life, and so they were like, maybe we'll lay off her a little bit. But they, were in rare form.
They
the
came
first
back
meeting
strong last week.
Oh yeah. So I was kind of like, wow, this could actually like work out. Maybe they'll be okay. No, we're right back to where we were before, and so it is what it is. But I will say this: I had nothing to do with it.
Speaking of your husband, how's he doing?
He's doing well. He's doing great. Thanks for asking. Yeah, he's back to work. He went on a business trip. He did all these things. So
I was thinking, after the, I guess we'll get through this month of February and March, and then maybe we can get together and do some kind of a benefit to get a bunch of these AEDs. I have a couple ideas in mind, and we can do some fundraisers and get these AEDs out in a lot more places, because it sounds like, they were a big part of helping your husband. And you have a friend that has a company.
She suffered cardiac arrest when she was 34. And there was like no reason for it. They don't really know why. So she started a nonprofit called The Beat Goes On. And so they put these AEDs in churches and nonprofit organizations and gyms and, things like that. So people can request them. So right after things happened with my husband, Hal, who owns Main Street Gym, had asked for 2 AEDs. And what was so crazy is that on December 4th, so 6 days before it happened, I had just presented Jamie with a check for $1,000, not a check, a fake check. We give them cash because we do a casual day fund here at the county, and we choose one nonprofit around Christmas time to give that to. So she was chosen this year. So it was just crazy. So she was actually able to buy the AEDs with $1,000 that came from Wicomico County. So somehow I'll get blamed for that too. Like, you knew it was going to happen. You knew.
Right. You can see it in the future. Well, I just want to say thank you for coming on, Miss Julie. It answers a lot of questions everybody wants to know. We get to ask a lot of questions, and I just don't know. I'm just like you. They think we kind of know a lot more than what we do, and I'm just a dumb bald guy that sits here and runs a Facebook page. But it helps when you come on board and you answer these questions for you. So I do appreciate that.
Well,
thank
anytime.
you for taking the time out of your day.
All right. Well, we will talk soon.
You be safe.
All right. Thanks. You too.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.